The internet has made communication possible for us around the world. It gives us the ability to connect, share data, and seek information in a matter of seconds. Is it the greatest invention of humankind? Or was the telephone more important? Could it have been the printing press? Maybe it was writing. Well, I'm here to tell you, my friends, that the most important human invention ever is the ancient art of storytelling. Shortly after learning to speak, the ability to craft a story became the most fundamental evolutionary trait for humankind. Everything else is a trick, a distraction, a modern-day device for amplification of what has already been the greatest disruption on our planet, and possibly the universe. Gone are the days of gathering around a campfire and listening to stories, when Grandpa would captivate our young minds for hours at a time. Now we gather around glowing screens all day long. We're mesmerized by the never-ending influx of new-aged LED toys that command our attention. Fast and furious colors constantly bombard us. Music now travels with us wherever we go. We carry orchestras in our earbuds. We're serenaded by singers performing our own personal soundtracks as we venture through wastelands of parking lot deserts. In our headphones, we carry storytellers with us as mentors and guides. Nowadays, even Grandpa has a podcast. Hello, I'm Tom Hackett, and this is my podcast about the ancient art of storytelling. Here we discuss the origins and evolution of stories through ancient mythology, legends, and oral traditions. Because every story has a story. What is it that separates us from other animals? How did we become top of the food chain? And how did we achieve it in such a short period of time? For over 200,000 years, humans likely spent our last few moments being an apex predator's lunch. Then, almost overnight, as far as the timeline of the world is concerned, around 70,000 years ago, during the cognitive revolution, our brains changed and grew. What is it about humans? How did we jump from middle of the pack on the food chain to absolute dominance? There's nothing about our bodies that strikes fear into any other animal. We don't have fangs. Our teeth are better set up for grinding vegetables and grains. We don't have sharp teeth that can rip apart a carcass. In fact, if we didn't cook most of our food, we would spend a big part of our day just chewing. We don't have fierce claws. We've got little wiggly fingers with incredibly soft nails. Not going to win many fights by attacking someone with a fresh manicure. Compared to other apes, we aren't even very strong. A monkey has 1.5 times more strength than we do. Compared to an eagle, our eyesight is atrocious. Dogs would find our smelling skills laughable. Our sense of smell is barely competent enough to keep us alive at the best of times. So what is it about humans? What skill do we have? We certainly aren't the fastest animal. A cheetah will easily beat us in a sprint. In fact, most animals will beat us in a sprint. Even a hippopotamus is faster than the fastest human. But we do have one strange ability, one random superhero trait that doesn't seem to make sense. One skill that our bodies evolved over time to perform better than every other animal. We sweat. We can run and cool ourselves at the same time. We are the world's greatest sweaters. No one can compare themselves to us. We can cool our bodies while we continue to run. Dogs have to rely on panting, which is incredibly inefficient. Horses and camels sweat, but not nearly as effective as we do. This strange superpower gives us the ability, in long distances, to outrun almost every other animal on the planet, except for an ostrich. They are marathon running machines. So is that our greatest ability? We can run away? We can run away better than any other animal? That would maybe explain how we've survived as a race. Stay out of trouble. When in danger, run. Keep jogging away from an apex predator until they eventually get tired of chasing us and they decide to look for a meal that requires less effort. Maybe that explains our survival. But how did we top the food chain? Did we develop the skill of distance running so that we were able to scavenge and prey on animals? Endurance hunters pursue their prey over long distances until the animal becomes exhausted or it overheats. Did we become a world-class runner for persistence hunting? A cheetah can quickly chase down a gazelle. We cannot. But we can track down our prey over a long distance, waiting until they tire themselves out. The process of tracking can last hours, even days for larger animals. Shoot a gazelle with an arrow and then track the fleeing animal. Eventually it'll slow down and that's your chance. Success. You've caught enough food to feed your tribe for a month. Your long-distance running is paid off. There's only one problem. You are now very far away from your tribe, and your catch is far too heavy for you to carry back to your village on your own. How are you going to enjoy this bounty with your people? You're going to have to go back to the village and convince someone to come out to the desert with you. You find someone in your tribe who looks like they might be willing to help you out. They ask how far away it is. You describe it as, it's just a few hours' walk past the mountain, through the forest, into the desert and beyond the palms. Your companion looks like they're losing interest, so you keep talking. We'll be heroes to our people. There'll be a celebration. And let's go quick before it begins to rot in the sun, or worse, something else enjoys our meal. Having the ability to communicate and describe the situation becomes incredibly important. It seems like language is going to be a pretty powerful tool. So when was language invented? One of my favorite theories for the invention of language came from Terence McKenna and his theory that has become known as the stoned ape theory. McKenna proposed that modern-day humans, or Homo sapiens, transformed from our ancient cousins, Homo erectus, with the addition of psilocybin in our diet. Psilocybin is a hallucinogenic compound found in certain mushrooms, otherwise known as magic mushrooms. The theory is that 100,000 years ago, the African continent began to turn into a desert. With the shrinking tropical canopy, humans were forced to search for new food sources. McKenna believed humans would have left their homes and followed large herds of wild cattle that were searching for grassier fields. The dung from these large herds would have supported magic mushrooms that would have been eaten by humans. The hypothesis is that low doses of psilocybin increase visual acuity. This new clarity of vision would allow humans to become better hunters, resulting in an increased food supply. Increased food meant a higher rate of reproductive success. McKenna also suggested that higher doses of the mushrooms produces a higher level of sexual arousal. This would result in more offspring. He even suggested that mushrooms dissolve boundaries within the users, promoting community bonding and group sexual activities. This would lead to mixing of genes, greater genetic diversity, and a communal sense of responsibility among the members for all the offspring. He also argued that psilocybin would trigger activity in the language-forming area of the brain. This would manifest itself as music and visions. He believed that magic mushrooms were the evolutionary catalyst propelling language, imagination, arts, religion, philosophy, science, and all of human culture. It's safe to say that a lot more research will be required on this topic. Some scientists suggest that Neanderthals had the ability to communicate. Their language may have been simple, with just a few words for things such as fire, food, clothing, but working with each other to survive would have required some form of communication. Neanderthals and humans share the gene that is necessary for speech and language to develop. FOXP2 is the gene responsible for brain maturation, speech, and language development. Studies are still being conducted to see how instrumental this gene was to our evolution of language. But a single gene is only one piece of an incredibly elaborate puzzle. What is it that allows humans to make our incredible range of sounds? It can be argued that the basis of a language can begin with as few as 2 words. Language develops from that, becoming more complicated. Even for humans, language did not appear all at once. It evolved from a handful of words that has slowly been developed for thousands of years. Some studies suggest that all modern and extinct hominins, going back over 2 million years to Homo erectus, were capable of some form of communication, that they likely had some basic language. It's not that shocking when we consider almost every animal on Earth now communicates in some way. Dolphins, dogs, even parrots with their uncanny ability to mimic our own speech. It only makes sense that our ancestors and their ancestors had some form of communication. So what separates humans from everything else? Our ability to create language, to form sounds, the ability of our vocal cords to pronounce words, and not just simple words. We're capable of the most subtle of inflections. Our languages are incredibly complex. Most primates have some sort of word-like calls, but we can express multiple meanings with just a few sounds. We have command of verbal languages. An ape can make different noises to warn of danger or ask for food, but we can arrange complex systems of sounds that go into infinite details. We can describe things to precision when talking to others. Our warning to another person could sound like, "Be careful of the danger down by the lake. There's an angry lion that shows up there around 6 p.m., just after dusk. Stay away." Or we can tell our tribe that a 20-minute run through the desert towards the sun will bring us to the carcass of an animal. Delicious dinnertime meal if we get there before anything else does. Come with me, it's this way. Other animals would stop following after a few minutes of hot sun, but not us. We're capable of running a small marathon. What we still don't understand is how our brains grew in size. How did we evolve our cranial capacity so quickly? Was it cooked meat that led to a growth in the size of our brains? Is it the size of our brains that makes us smart? Are we even the smartest animal? Neanderthals, hominins from the Neander Valley, actually had larger brains than we do. Did that make them smarter? This is the reason why human growth is slow compared to other primates. Our brain accounts for 2% of our body weight, and yet it uses 25% of our calories while at rest. Other apes only use 8% of their calories to feed their brains. The longer a brain takes to physically mature, the longer the peak learning period. However, evidence from a 7-year-old Neanderthal skeleton suggests that the Neanderthal brain took even longer to develop than humans, giving them a longer learning period. Why did they die out and we flourished? As our brains grew, our muscles atrophied. Why did we sacrifice our muscles just to spend more time in search of food to accommodate our brain? What caused this evolutionary trait? Why did our brains evolve? Over the last 2 million years, our neural networks have continued to evolve and grow. Why did we stand up? Why did our spinal column accommodate holding our head above our bodies? Did standing up straight open up our vocal cords to allow for more language abilities? Our arms freed themselves from helping us move and became useful for building tools and signaling to others. We finely tuned the little muscles in our palms and fingers. We became able to delicately craft fine tools and jewelry. We even developed the ability to write and paint. No longer needing to wrap around tree branches, our feet and hands solidified the bones and supported our bilateral walking stance. While these evolutionary traits were taking place, our brains began developing cognitive abilities. We were able to look at a stone and imagine a tool inside of it. We began flaking off chips of stone in order to create very useful cutting materials. Even the flakes we chipped away became important to us. Microblades, small, razor-sharp blades used to cut, fillet, and skin as required. With the growth of our brain came the ability to imagine. Our bodies supported the weight of this evolved brain by standing up. The cost for having this ability to walk upright still results in backaches and stiff necks. Our bodies haven't fully evolved to support our big brains in our walking stance. In fact, inside of us is a museum of natural history. Remnants from our tree-swinging days still exist. Leftovers, like wisdom teeth, are no longer required. Ancient relics that have stuck around because they don't use up enough energy for our bodies to discard them. Some people can still wiggle their ears, which was once important for locating the origin of a sound. Having sound locators and night vision was essential for survival. Our mammalian ancestors, called the therapsids, became nocturnal around 250 million years ago, a necessity in order to coexist with dinosaurs and escape extinction. We might owe our very survival to the dinosaurs. Reptilian predators hunted by day. Until the demise of the dinosaur 66 million years ago, mammals were adapted to the dark. This nocturnal behavior allowed us to survive the giant meteor impact that produced a nuclear winter which wiped out the dinosaurs. Because of their tiny size, mammals survived on small amounts of food. Their fur coats kept them warm during the plunging global temperatures. Free from dinosaurs, mammals could live during the day. With no more competition for food, they began to evolve, taking on the shapes of their dinosaur predecessors. This can be seen in the neck of the giraffe being similar to a brachiosaurus. Our increased flexibility in our own necks reduced the need for moving our ears. If you touch your thumb to your pinky, the tendon in the middle of your wrist has no reason for being there. Monkeys and lemurs still require that tendon to move around with their forearms. About 15% of our population no longer has that tendon. The tails that we still grow in the womb are no longer required. Walking upright and adapting to living on the ground means we no longer need a tail. Anything past the tailbone became unnecessary. Our appendix, tonsils, third eyelid, even goosebumps are leftover evolutionary traits. Human behaviors change quickly, but evolution is slow. The body remembers. The female birth canal became restricted because of our upper stance. This requires women to essentially give birth prematurely. Our babies are completely dependent on us for their survival. Yet a baby giraffe or a calf is capable of walking on its own minutes after birth. How much would humans benefit from a longer birth period? But then our gigantic heads would never get out of the birth canal. How did we survive carrying around these massive heads while other predators chased us down? How did we leap past other predators to the top of the food chain? Some scientists suggest it was our ability to control fire that accounts for our brain development. Cooked food meant smaller teeth and jaws. This allowed for more room in our skulls for bigger brains. Chimpanzees can spend up to 5 hours chewing their food. Because of fire, we reduced that time to 1 hour. With new foods that we could cook and break down quickly, we now had more time to contemplate life. While chimpanzees were still looking to find roots and nuts to chew on, we were busy chewing on thoughts. When Homo sapiens landed in Eurasia, we replaced the Neanderthals. How did this happen? Did we interbreed the Neanderthals out of existence? Did we violently wipe them out? How could we have achieved that when they had larger brains and bodies that were better adapted to the cold climate? Evidence suggests they controlled fire, had tools, and the ability to survive cold weather. Their facial features included wider noses that could accommodate cooler temperatures. We know their diets included lots of protein. This means they had the ability to hunt big game. They would have hunted in groups to have success against larger animals. Hunting in groups requires communication. They also needed people to get all that meat back to the village. Research done on their bodies suggests they were stronger than us. Their bodies have been compared to modern-day bull riders for the amount of fractures and breaks in their bones. Fighting big game is a tough business. They were stronger than us, better hunters, and had the ability to survive in colder climates. How did we persevere? There's the replacement theory that we overran them, or even mated them out of existence. Since most humans have about 2 to 4% Neanderthal DNA, it proves that we were procreating with them. Imagine if Neanderthals were still around. Would they have a place in our origin stories? Would Neanderthals have a chapter in the Bible? Would we live in cities and suburbs with our Neanderthal cousins? They could be our neighbors. Would we wave to each other as we're out mowing our lawns? Would we be on the same baseball teams, working the same jobs? Or would we keep them as curiosities, some sort of pet? Maybe we would have a Neanderthal league of cage fighters. Or would they just be another animal that we leapfrogged on our way to the top of the food chain? What is it about our cognitive revolution 70,000 years ago that accelerated our development? We developed symbolic thinking. Symbolic thinking is the ability to think about objects and events that are not within the immediate environment. It involves the use of signs, symbols, numbers, and concepts to create language and artistic expression. This is still an ongoing debate about when this happened. Some archaeologists suggest that Homo sapiens emerged from Africa already with the ability for modern cognition. But we see undeniable evidence of this through art, starting around 70,000 years ago. Symbolic thinking is crucial for developing language. Language itself is important, but it means nothing without having a working memory. A working memory is the final critical step in modern cognition. This allows the brain to retrieve, process, and hold in mind several pieces of information. What is the point of us being able to run great distances to track an animal if we can't remember where we left the meal, or how to get back to our tribe? What if we could never remember where we parked our cars? It still happens to me sometimes. Or imagine having to relearn how to drive every time we got into a car. We have the ability to hold something in attention while being distracted. What a gift. We can multitask. We can problem solve, strategize, innovate, and plan. We can keep track of things. We can anticipate and prepare the next steps. We were able to remember. Squirrels forget where they bury 74% of their nuts. What a waste of time and effort. But humans can remember. We're able to pass down knowledge, and the people listening will not only understand, but they'll hold on to that information. Once we developed these skills, other inventions quickly followed. We built basic tools like hammerstones and blades. We made needles for sewing. We made items that required advanced working memory. We even built tools from separate pieces, tools made out of tools, hafted spears, bows and arrows. We built oil lamps and boats. We built animal traps. We imagined a device that could capture and hold on to an animal. Squirrels would forget all about their traps, but we remembered to return later to the very same place to see if the snare worked. That is working memory. With more tools came more accessible foods. With more food available, there was more time for recreation, more time to think, to create, art, technology. Symbolic thinking, language, and working memory, the three greatest components of our brains. With the development of our imagination came religions, commerce, and social stratifications. We became storytellers. We began passing those stories on from generation to generation. We passed on knowledge for hunting, tool making, building, childbirth, medicine, survival. We spoke, and we became human. We began to communicate better than anything else ever had. We were able to learn and pass along that knowledge to each other. Younger generations learned from their elders. We could exchange recipes of technology. This aided in forming long-distance social and trade networks. This is possibly what Neanderthals lacked. We had the ability to spread into new, more complex worlds. We could live in different locations along the coastlines, explore kelp highways and search for more fruitful valleys. The greatest benefit of this may have been the ability to form many different groups of societies. This became important for finding mates outside of small villages. Trade networks were good for sending daughters who were coming of age to different villages. Mixing with different social groups helped perpetuate our existence. Some anthropologists speculate the lack of social networks was what ultimately did in the Neanderthals. Stick to small groups and eventually your ability to procreate healthy children will disappear. Stay in larger groups and there's a better mixing of genes. Travel to trade with an entirely different tribe and your lineage will pass on. But living in larger groups and trading with different tribes requires communication. It requires understanding the social norms of everyone around you. Quickly deciphering a friend from an enemy could be the difference of survival for your people. Anthropologists use the term band to describe a group of less than 100 people. This would typically be foragers and nomadic hunter-gatherers. They would often be family members or a few small families working together. In this size of a group, you'd be able to know who everyone is and how they behave as a person. Are they trustworthy, honorable, helpful? A band typically lacks formal leadership and is transient, shifting due to circumstances. A tribe consists of 100 to 5,000 people. This number requires much more complicated social structures. In a tribe, communication plays an important role. Our brains have the ability to keep track of around 150 people. Any more than that, and we require help from others to know how people behave. Through communication with other trusted members of our group, we can share our experiences and discuss other members' actions. Beyond that, we need a social structure in place to help us maintain social norms. Tribes in New Guinea have a word that describes what we term the big man. Their word literally means man of influence. We see that larger groups require some form of big man to communicate for mediation, diplomacy, and persuasion. Chiefdoms are ranked societies, often with inherited roles. People of higher rank enjoy greater social status. Prestige and power dominate these groups. And finally, states, which consist of hundreds of thousands of people. They require governments that exercise some use of force. They have administrative bureaucracy to handle public functions. And they have taxes. Writing was likely created to keep track of taxes. Being able to express a common language meant familiarity. It meant understanding the group's rules. Language requires an ability to explain concerns and understand the way things are done to protect everyone as a whole. Language becomes mandatory for large groups of people to cohabitate. Humans used sounds to create language, developed by symbolic thinking and passed along through memory. We were able to create an unlimited amount of words and sentences, all with distinct meanings. Our words are incredibly subtle, powerful, thought-provoking, and even funny. The most beneficial way of sharing knowledge became storytelling. Storytelling is a powerful tool for social cooperation. It teaches social norms and provides valuable dividends to the storytellers themselves. Anthropologists studied a hunter-gatherer tribe in the Philippines and played a resource allocation game. The findings revealed that good storytellers were valued above all other professions. Even though they aren't necessary for our immediate survival, they received more rice than good hunters, fishers, and foragers. They were also more popular with the opposite sex and had more children. Overall, levels of cooperation were higher in camps that had more skilled storytellers. We can see that reflected in today's societies, with Hollywood actors' incomes greatly exceeding local farmers' wages. We appreciate having food, but we love a great story. As Terry Pratchett quoted in his novel The Globe, the anthropologists got it wrong when they named our species Homo sapiens, or wise man. In reality, we are pan-narrans, the storytelling chimpanzee. Our language evolved from sharing information. It's not just technology and survival skills that we communicate. So what is it that humans do with communication that is different from other primates and animals? We gossip. We get the dirt. We share other people's business. Our basic desire to communicate with others, to be social animals, is what separates us from everything else. We need to know who is sleeping with who. Are they still together? Is that person a liar? Who can we trust? Are they a thief? Are they nice, trustworthy, sharing, caring? Gossiping is our super skill. We've even created television shows that create gossip for us when we aren't around our friends. We love the drama. But why? What is it about gossip? Does it make us feel better about ourselves? Absolutely it does. Why is that? It allows us the chance to put ourselves into someone else's shoes and understand what they went through. We can understand their thoughts. Every bit of gossip is a lesson learned for ourselves without having to go through all the painful events that led up to the moments that ended a marriage. We can live vicariously through someone else's pain. Hallelujah. We can experience their joy and suffering without getting hurt. This is incredible. And we can remember those feelings, even if we didn't feel it ourselves. What sort of trickery is this? We can pass on that knowledge to someone else without having to live it. This is what we're able to do with our greatest gift, gossip. Even now, we gossip an average of 52 minutes a day. This is based on the definition that gossip is the discussion about socially relevant topics. It's not just malicious rumors. It's considered to be discussion of people that aren't in the room. It's information sharing and community building. It's also nonstop practice of our language. It's experiencing feelings, learning about the world while we don't even leave our couch. Don't believe me? When's the last time you saw two apes gossiping? It doesn't happen. At least not that we're aware of. Dogs don't walk around warning other dogs about pickpockets or charlatans. They don't suddenly go quiet when the dog they're talking about walks into a room. Humans can gossip for hours. It's our superpower. We can even make gossip up. When we don't have anything else to talk about, we can create fiction. Things that do not exist. Things that are not even seen. Things that can't be touched or smelled. Symbolic thinking. Show me an animal that can make things up to talk about. They can't. It's our unique gift. We can talk about fairies and unicorns. We can have guardian spirits. We have created gods, demigods, and demons. We've had mythical stories travel around the world. Our collective imaginations are the most powerful thing on Earth, or any other planet we can imagine. There are currently over 4,200 identified religions in our world today, each with a specific church, denomination, religious body, faith group, tribe, culture, movement, and concern. That's just an estimation, because religions get tough to define. They can be incredibly abstract. A religion can mean something to one person and something completely different to someone else. If we counted every religious form from every person, there would be more than 10,000 religions today. We can create. Throughout recorded history, we can count almost 12,000 gods. But that's only an estimation as well, because defining a god becomes tricky. Gods, demigods, goddesses, spirits, sprites, deities, creators, divine beings, idols, spirit animals, trees, numbers. Defining a god becomes tough to do. And yet we don't have a single piece of evidence anywhere in all of the world to show that any of the thousands of gods exist or have ever existed. Not that that matters at all. If we can imagine it, then it exists. That is an incredibly powerful gift for fiction. We love dealing in the imagination. Each and every god and religion has its own story, and each of those stories have their own stories. We literally have millions of stories on one subject. We haven't even mentioned mythology, folk tales, legends, ghost tales, traditions, parables, epic poems. Basically, we have a lot of stories to discuss. So please gather around the fire and listen close. We are truly the greatest storytellers in the universe that we're aware of. We've had thousands of years of practice at telling stories, maybe hundreds of thousands. We know we interacted with the Neanderthals due to our shared DNA. Is it possible that we may still be using some words that were first created by Neanderthals? Maybe we have some traces of their language still in our words. We don't know when language was first used, because recording languages only came about with the invention of writing 5,000 years ago. But our modern language has ancient roots. Words adapt and evolve over time. Languages are created and become extinct. Linguists estimate that there have been over 30,000 languages spoken on Earth. There are over 6,000 languages being spoken today. It's estimated that half that number will become extinct this century. That means on average, a language is dying every 2 weeks. In our modern languages, there are over 20 words that we do not know where they originated from. Is it possible that we're still speaking words that were first created 2.5 million years ago? What if we've been saying cool for millions of years? That's pretty cool to think about. A research team found that 23 words have remained largely unchanged. They've been traced back 15,000 years through Eurasiatic language families. Is it possible that as modern humans came into Europe and Asia and began mixing with Neanderthals, that we heard them speaking and we kept some of their language? Maybe they had already been telling stories and we learnt it from them. If a Neanderthal showed up at a party today, could they understand some of our words? An entire sentence of 23 words traced back 15,000 years. We could say, "You, man, give this worm to mother, and give me a hand with this fire. Pull off the old black bark, you hear me? And don't spit in the ashes." It's possible a Neanderthal could understand every word, and will feel quite bad about spitting in the ashes. What's really incredible to think is that some of those words could go back even further than 15,000 years. What if, and there's absolutely no evidence of this, but what if the word mother goes back even further than 15,000 years? What if we weren't even the first ones to say the word mother? Is there a possibility that we may have adapted it from the Neanderthals? That it wasn't even created by Homo sapiens? And what if the Neanderthals first heard it from a different species, passed down from Homo erectus? Maybe mother was first spoken by archaic humans, and the word has been passed down through the ages from our ancestors. Wouldn't it be great if it's the oldest word on the planet? And the word has been handed down through multiple species of hominins? Wouldn't it be great if we've been telling stories about mothers since the beginning of our ancient species? For 2.5 million years, somehow this one word has managed to carry on throughout our ancient history, right up to our modern day. There's absolutely no evidence suggesting this is possible. And this is certainly my own imagination for the longevity of the word mother. But I somehow hope it's true. That it is the first word ever spoken. That it is the oldest word in the ancient art of storytelling.